Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling a problem that I think, everyone knows exists, but nobody really knows how to fix. It's the paradox of the empty cockpit.
It really is a paradox.
Oh,
We have this massive pilot shortage globally. I mean, airlines are desperate, cargo companies are desperate.
yeah,
And at the same time, we have a whole generation of students who are just obsessed with technology, obsessed with gaming, and love things that go fast.
exactly. You would think that connecting kid who loves video games to future airline pilot would be a straight line, but it's not.
It's definitely not. Usually, that bridge between those 2 points is broken by, I'd say, three things: cost, access, and complexity.
Mhm.
If you want to learn to fly, you generally need a lot of money, a car to get to a local airport, which might be an hour away, and, a parent willing to drive you there every Saturday.
It's a huge barrier to entry. But today, we're looking at a stack of documents that claims to smash that barrier. We're doing a deep dive into the SIA Sim.
That's SIA, pronounced SIA.
And what makes this so interesting is that we're not talking about some new video game you pick up on Scheme.
No, not at all. We are analyzing a dedicated educational appliance. We've got the technical specs for their Gen 2.1 simulator, the curriculum breakdown, and the background on the foundation behind it all.
The mission here seems pretty bold. It's not just let's play planes. It's about bringing the cockpit directly into the classroom.
Exactly. It's about visualization. It's taking those abstract concepts, lift, drag, navigation, and making them tangible for a student who might never have even set foot in an airport.
Okay, so I want to start with the hardware, because as a bit of a gadget geek, I was reading through the specs for this Gen 2.1 unit, and something just jumped out at me immediately, and it wasn't the joystick.
Let me guess. It was the operating system.
It was absolutely the operating system. The documentation highlights in bold text that the SIA Sim is based on Linux.
Now, I can hear some of our listeners tuning out right now thinking, okay, Linux, that's just tech jargon. But in a classroom environment, this is actually the most critical feature of the entire machine.
Why is that? Is it just about being open source or something?
It's about stability, but more importantly, it's about time management. I mean, think about the last time you tried to use a Windows computer or a gaming console that hadn't been turned on in a week.
Oh, I know that pain. You press the power button, you're all ready to go, and then you get the spinning wheel. Update 1 of 57. Do not turn off your computer.
Exactly. And you sit there for 45 minutes watching a progress bar. Now imagine you're a teacher. You have a 50-minute class period. You've got 30 students waiting. You cannot spend 20 of those minutes updating GPU drivers.
Or waiting for the OS to patch itself.
Yeah.
That would kill the lesson before it even started.
It would. And that is why the Linux choice here is just so brilliant. The source material emphasizes this so heavily. No updates are needed. No OS updates. No driver updates. No flight sim software updates.
That is just wild to me.
Yeah.
In a world where my toaster wants to connect to Wi-Fi to update its firmware, having a high-tech flight simulator that just works, that's refreshing.
It essentially turns the computer into an appliance. You don't update your microwave, you just use it. And the documents mention this leads to incredible robustness. It says the system goes from power on to flight ready in a little over a minute.
60 seconds.
Yeah.
That is faster than I can get my laptop to open a spreadsheet on most mornings.
And that speed, it changes the whole psychology for the educator. If a teacher knows the tech will work instantly every single time they'll use it, if they fear a 20-minute troubleshooting session, that simulator is going to end up collecting dust in the corner of the lab.
So we have this Linux box that is rock solid.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about the interface, because I've seen flight simulators in schools before. And usually it's a dusty old desktop computer with a cheap plastic joystick that slides all over the place.
Which is fine if you're playing an arcade game. But the SIA Sim is aiming for something else entirely. They call it a complete representation of a real aircraft. And to do that, you need more than just a stick and a mouse.
I'm looking at the equipment list here, and it's pretty extensive. We have a real yoke, throttle, mixture, rudder pedals, and a trim wheel.
And that list is so significant because it differentiates between steering and flying.
Let's break that down, because I think a lot of people just assume flying is pull back to go up, push forward to go down.
Mm-hmm.
Why is something like the mixture control so important for, say, a middle schooler?
Because it introduces the concept of engine management. In a video game, you just push the throttle forward and you go fast. But in a real plane, the engine is a chemistry set. As you climb, the air gets thinner.
Right.
You have to lean the fuel mixture, reduce the amount of fuel going into the engine to keep it running efficiently.
So it forces the student to think about what the machine is actually doing, not just where it's going.
Precisely. It turns a gas pedal mindset into a systems management mindset.
And then there's the trim wheel. This is the one that really surprised me. I feel like most people who haven't flown don't even know what trim is.
Oh, it's arguably one of the most important concepts for a student pilot to master. When a plane changes speed, the pressure on the control yoke changes. You might have to physically fight the yoke just to keep the nose level.
Which sounds exhausting.
It is. If you don't use trim, you are literally wrestling the airplane. The trim wheel lets you neutralize that pressure so the plane basically flies itself. By including a physical trim wheel, the SIA Sim teaches the student to fly with finesse.
You can't learn that by scrolling a mouse wheel.
No way, you need that tactile feedback of the actual physical wheel.
And speaking of tactile feedback,
Yeah.
we have to talk about the feet, the rudder pedals.
This is the deal breaker. This is what separates a game from a trainer.
Because usually in a home setup, you just twist the joystick to move the rudder, right?
Correct. Or you're using keys on a keyboard. But in a real aircraft, your feet are just as busy as your hands. It's called coordinated flight. When you turn the yoke left, you have to press the left rudder pedal to keep the tail following the nose. If you don't, the plane kind of slips or skids through the air.
It's a total body coordination thing.
It is. It's muscle memory. And it feels very unnatural at first. In a car, pedals are for gas and brake. In a plane, pedals are for yaw. By providing real rudder pedals, the SIA Sim forces the student to build that coordination from day one.
So they aren't just watching the turn, they are physically flying the turn.
Exactly. So the hardware is designed to trick the brain and the muscles into thinking this is the real deal.
And what exactly are they flying? I'm assuming it isn't a fighter jet or a massive jumbo.
No, and that's very intentional. They are flying the Cessna 172,
The classic.
the absolute gold standard. It's the most commonly used training aircraft in the world today. And there's a huge strategic value in that choice. Well, imagine a student spends a semester learning on the SIA Sim. They get comfortable with where the throttle is, how the gauges look, where the flap switch is. Then their parents buy them an introductory flight lesson at the local airport.
They're going to step into the exact same cockpit.
Exactly the same. The layout, the view out the window, it's all the same. It creates this seamless bridge between the virtual classroom and the physical tarmac. It validates everything they just learned on the screen.
So we've established that the hardware is serious business. It's robust, it's realistic, and it matches the real world. But you can't just drop this into a science classroom and expect a biology teacher to know how to teach aerodynamics.
That is the classic failure point for educational tech, isn't it? Here's a gadget, good luck figuring it out.
So how does SIA handle that? The source material mentions a specific curriculum.
It does, and I love the way they design the classroom dynamic. They don't expect the teacher to be a pilot. The documentation says the educator oversees and directs the flight from the keyboard.
Wait, so the student is hands-on with the yoke, flying the plane, but the teacher is driving the computer.
Think of it like an instructor station, or even air traffic control. The student is focused on flying. The teacher can use the keyboard to set up the scenario, change the weather, or just pause the simulation to explain a concept.
That is a really cool dynamic. It stops it from being this solitary experience where a kid has headphones on and ignores the world. It turns it into a team exercise.
Exactly. The teacher becomes the mission commander. And in terms of what they're actually teaching, it goes way beyond just don't crash. The list includes cockpit orientation, learning what all those gauges do, but also specific maneuvers, turns, climbs, descents.
I see critical phases of flight listed here too. Takeoffs and landings.
And taxiing.
Okay, now taxiing seems like the boring part. Why would they highlight taxiing as a key feature?
Because taxiing a real airplane is shockingly difficult for beginners. You're steering with your feet, not your hands. You have a spinning propeller in front, creating torque. Just learning to keep the plane on the yellow line while looking out the window is a genuine skill.
I guess I never thought about that. In a video game, you just press W and the plane goes straight.
Right. But on the SIA Sim, with those rudder pedals, you have to actively manage the aircraft on the ground. If a student can master taxiing on the sim, they have saved themselves hours of frustration in a real plane later on.
The curriculum also mentions advanced concepts like stalls and cold startups.
The cold startup is a fantastic inclusion for a STEM class.
And that just means starting the plane from a completely dead state, right?
Yes. In most games, you spawn on the runway with the engine already roaring. But in real aviation, the flight starts on the ground with a checklist. Master switch on? Check. Beacon light? Check. Mixture rich? Check.
It teaches discipline.
It teaches that aviation is procedural. It's not about reckless abandon, it's about following a process to ensure safety. Teaching that mindset, that checklists matter, is applicable to everything in STEM, not just flying.
And if the teacher gets stuck, if the mission commander doesn't know why the plane is stalling or how to explain a steep turn,
The ecosystem supports them. The documents point to studentsinAviation.com. And it's not just a website, it's a whole resource hub. Educators get free access to training videos, podcasts, lesson plans, basically a full support network.
so they're providing the infrastructure, not just the box. That seems to be a recurring theme here. They're trying to remove every single excuse for not teaching aviation.
It's a holistic approach. They aren't selling a toy, they're providing a program.
I want to pivot now to the why and the who, because reading through this, it doesn't feel like a product designed by a focus group at some massive tech conglomerate. It feels personal.
It's very personal. The driving force behind all this is a man named Joe Canepa.
And Joe isn't just a software developer, right?
No, he's a CFI, a certified flight instructor.
Ah, that explains so much.
It explains everything we just talked about. It explains why the mixture knob is there. It explains why the rudder pedals are mandatory. He didn't build a game. He built the tool he wished his students had before they got in the plane with him.
He built the simulator he wanted to teach on.
Exactly. His whole motivation was to make it easier to discover career pathways in aviation. He saw that barrier to entry, that high cost, that distance from the airport, and decided to build a ladder.
And he didn't just build a product to sell.
Yeah.
This is the part that I found genuinely surprising in the documents. We see a lot of educational initiatives that are really just sales funnels. But the SIA Foundation, they donate these things.
They do. Joe started Students in Aviation, the SIA Foundation, back in 2016 as a nonprofit. And yeah, they donate flight simulators to schools across the U.S. every single year.
I'm looking at the stats in the source material dated January 2026. What are the numbers looking like?
As of January 2026, they've donated over 120 SIA Sims.
Over 120 schools. That is not a small pilot program.
That is tens of thousands of students.
It's incredible impact. And for the schools that don't get a donation, because I imagine the waiting list for free hardware is pretty long, they can still get them.
Yes, the documents mention that low-cost SIA Sims are available.
Which is smart. If a district wants to build a full lab, say 10 stations, so an entire class can fly at once, they can do that without bankrupting the science budget.
And that low-cost option is just crucial for scalability. A donation gets the foot in the door, but the low-cost purchase lets a school really expand the program.
There is one last detail in the who and where section that I just thought was, well, it's poetic. It's about their headquarters.
The location in Wisconsin.
Yeah. The SIA Foundation is based at the Baraboo Dells Airport, but not just in some anonymous office park.
They are located in the original Cirrus aircraft hangar.
For listeners who aren't deep into aviation lore, can you explain why that matters?
Oh, Cirrus aircraft is a massive deal in general aviation. They were the disruptors of the 90s and 2000s. They completely revolutionized the industry with composite airplanes and, famously, the airframe parachute.
So to have this new disruptor, this educational grassroots movement, operating out of the same physical space where Cirrus started.
It feels like passing the torch, doesn't it? It's a legacy of innovation continuing in the exact same spot. It really grounds the whole story. It's not just software, it's aviation heritage.
It gives it a sense of place. So let's step back and look at the whole picture here. What are we really looking at with the SIA Sim?
I think we're looking at a bridge. We're looking at a tool that prioritizes all the right things. It prioritizes stability via Linux, so learning isn't interrupted by updates. It prioritizes muscle memory via the real controls, especially those rudder pedals, so the skills are actually transferable.
And it prioritizes the teacher through the curriculum support.
It strikes me as a very pragmatic solution to a very romantic problem. We all want to fly. There's something universal about looking up at a plane and wondering what it's like. But gravity and money keep us on the ground. This device chips away at both of those.
It demystifies the cockpit. That's the biggest value. The cockpit of a plane looks terrifyingly complex to an outsider. It looks like a spaceship. But if a 14-year-old can sit at a SIA Sim and learn, okay, this is the altimeter, this is the throttle, this is how I trim for level flight, suddenly the magic becomes mechanics.
And mechanics can be mastered.
Exactly. Once it's a skill, it's a career option. It changes that internal narrative from, I could never do that, to, hey, I already know how to do some of this.
I want to leave the listener with a thought based on those numbers we saw. Over 120 schools, thousands of students.
It's a growing network,
So if we fast forward 10 years
right?
to 2036, the pilot shortage might look very, very different.
I think you're right. Imagine you're boarding a flight in 2036. You're walking down the jetway. The captain welcomes you aboard. There is a very real chance that captain didn't start their journey at an expensive flight academy or because their parents were pilots.
Right.
They might have started their journey in a middle school classroom in Wisconsin or Ohio or Texas because a nonprofit put a Linux box on their desk and said, here, try this.
The spark has to start somewhere. For the next generation of aviators, that spark is digital, it's open source, and it's sitting in a classroom right now.
It's a powerful thought. Thanks for taking this flight with us.
Always a pleasure. Fly safe.
See you on the next deep dive.